Now, this is the John Hunt Lecture. It's named after one of the founders of our college, and it was established to celebrate our 40th anniversary in 1992. We're just about at our 65th anniversary now. John Hunt was a GP in private practice in London, and in 1951, with Dr. Fraser Rose, published a letter in the BMJ and the Lancet proposing a college of general practice. The other colleges were appalled by this thought. John Hunt went on to have very prominent roles in our college and received many accolades from many societies later on, and in fact was made Lord Hunt in 1973. He died in 1981. This lecture is one of our most prestigious lectures and is given once during each college presidency by a speaker who is not normally medically qualified. Now, it gives me great pleasure to ask Sir Tim Smit, the co-founder and chair of Eden Project International, to give our John Hunt lecture. So I'm going to invite him on the stage in a moment. I just want to say that Sir Tim is a force of nature, and I have complete permission to interrupt him at around about 5:10 if he's still in full flow. So I'm not being rude, we have agreed it in advance. So, Sir Tim.
Hello. I never know what I'm going to say, but I do know that I'm going to say it really, really fast. So I think I'm going to tell you the story of my life right up to this minute from the beginning, okay? Bang. All right. No, I'll start later than that. I am in a really expensive hotel room called the Plaza Athénée Hotel in Paris, probably one of the most expensive and best hotels on the planet. And I'm picked up by a limousine, and I get in this limousine, and the radio comes on, and the record that is on the radio is mine. I have written it, and it is the biggest selling record in French history. It's been #1 for 15 weeks. And then the next record up, which is going to knock my record off #1, is by Michel Thor, and it's called En Irlande, and it's going to knock me off the #1 spot. Shame, I wrote that as well. So, there I am in the back of this limousine, having what everybody would think would be the idea of most young man's wet dreams. I'm big, and I start to cry. There I am in the back of this limousine, and I have never been so unhappy in my life. Because one of the really weird things, as Gertrude Stein once said, is the trouble with getting there is that when you get there, there's no there. And I think many of us may recognize that. I then decided I was going to leave the music industry, and by one reason or another, I was going to end up in Cornwall because I decided to lead my life by random chance. I went into an estate agent because it was raining, and I saw a house, and the guy who was in the estate agent said, "Sir, you won't like that." I said, "Give it to me." And then the following day it was raining again, so I drove up a long drive in the middle of nowhere. I was living in Brixton in London at the time, so this was a bit extreme. And this tractor pulls over, and it stops me from moving. The guy says, "What you doing, old buck?" I said, "This is really embarrassing. I wanted to see this house." 2 hours later, I'd bought the house. So I had to move to Cornwall. Do you know how scary it is, changing your life just like that? Bang! For 3 months, I didn't know what to do. And then a friend of mine gave me a pig, a black pig, called Licorice. And Licorice and I fell in love. And Licorice would come into the house and warm his arse against the Aga. And eventually I realized he was lonely. So I went and found Doris. So Doris and Licorice then made babies. And then I knew, of course, the thing I was meant to do above all else was to have a rare breed farm, wasn't it? That is obviously what I was meant to do if you're living your life by intuition. So I went to find some land, and I went to find the man who had the land. And because my lips are so sensitive, my life changed all over again. Because he told me instantly I couldn't have the land, but the coffee was so damned hot, I had to make small talk, and I told him I used to be an archaeologist, and he said, "I have need of an archaeologist." That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that. And he said, "I have just inherited this big estate next door, and I haven't got any money, but would you like to come and cut your way in with me? No one's been in there since 1915. So the following day, I arrived with a machete to go garden visiting, and 45 minutes later, I knew the truth. I was destined to be the owner and restorer of a beautiful garden. Now, I have to add to the story that at that time, I didn't know the difference between one plant and another. I did know green side up, which was technical. But I also knew about marketing, and I had this gut feeling about big. You see, so what happened was I phoned a friend at the BBC and I said, would you like to make a documentary about me restoring this amazing garden? And he said, yes. So he came and they filmed and it was absolutely fantastic and it went out and it won an award. The only problem with the program was they forgot to mention that we weren't yet open to the public, which meant that the following day after transmission, the good ladies of Dartmouth arrived. Terrifying. And the day after that, 6 coaches. So we decided that we would open up and we actually got some cloakroom tickets from Woolworths and ripped the toilet out of the Portaloo. And we charged people to come in, and they would come in and they'd watch us restoring the gardens, and they say, what's up there? And you'd say, no idea, but here's a machete, why don't you go and find out? Great business model, great business model. Anyway, restored the gardens, and it was all fab, and all the local schools wanted to come, and I said, I have children. I am good with children. What I hadn't realized is your own kids have got a vested interest in finding you funny because you provide them with pocket money, birthdays, Christmas, all the rest of it. Other kids have got no such loyalty. So for 2 out of 3 days, I had the worst days of my entire professional life, up to today. I mean, no, I don't mean up to today. But I've completely lost my thread. That's why. Oh yes. So on the 3rd day, I came in absolutely terrified. You know that feeling, your tummy tight as a drum. You don't know what you're going to do. And there were these 60 kids in front of me, and I suddenly knew what to do. I just looked at them and like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I just sneered and I said, I'm going to tell you about poison. I'm going to tell you about the poisons that will burn through your little stomach linings, and you will just drip, drip, drip to death. They were mine. Now, I was the Gary Barlow of plants. So then I told them about the plants invented by the ancient Aztecs to stop live human sacrifices, screaming as their still pumping heart was being pulled from the chest cavity to be held up to celebrate the solstice. At this point, I could have told them about potatoes and they'd have followed me through fire. And I understood something really profound, which is how excluding it is if you can't tell stories. And I suddenly fell in love with storytelling. So we told lots of stories at Lost Gardens of Heligan, and we have about 350,000 people a year come there. People fall in love there. 400 people have had their ashes scattered there. And people come from all over the world because they realize it is an anagram of healing. And they come. And while I was doing that, I fell in love with the idea of doing something even bigger. Heligan was 200 acres, but I'd set my sights on the clay district in the middle of the clay of Cornwall. And I found the most perfect pit. And I won't bore you with the details of how we raised the money, but we raised £144 million. And on March the 17th, 2001, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, because it was mostly Irish guys who'd helped me build it, we opened. And we've had 20 million people come since then. It's been a fantastic adventure. But one of the really funny things is, you know, if you have a big dream and a big story, and you have a big stage, there are hundreds of people who are looking to change their lives, who are waiting for a moment to be in the spotlight. It's ironically much easier to do something big and wonderful than it is to do something small. And yet most of us think that big things are what are done by other people. But you can actually make big things by linking lots of small things together, which is what we did with Eden. And I learned so much. Like, once the crowds came in, my chairman, he said, Tim, you can no longer run this project like a gang leader, for God's sake. I said, well, what should I do? And he said, you've got no corporate governance at all. And I said, what do I need that for? He said, damn it, man, there are no KPIs. And I said, what the fuck are they? And he said, anyway, at that point, he gave me that patrician look that only old school English people can give, you know, with the bushy eyebrows pursed together. And he said, if there are no changes, one of us will have to go. Still being blithely, oblivious to what was going on. I said, Ronnie, I'd hate to see you go. and anyway, I went away for 2 days with some very good red wine, and I wrote a management manual. Very cool, very grown up, I think, don't you? Yeah. And there are 9 rules in it. Rule number 1 is you've got to say good morning to 20 people before you start work. Rule number 2, you've got to read 2 books that everybody knows you would say were completely outside of your sphere of interest, and you must review them for your colleagues. Rule numbers 3, 4, and 5, you've got to go and show, go into a concert, go and see a film, same rules as number 2. Why? Because most people are bloody stupid. No, they are. I include myself in this. The problem is we think we're clever because we can read The Guardian. No, but you know what I mean? And actually getting new things in, getting new stuff in your head requires work, genuine work. Yeah? So I have a rule, and my rule is I accept every third invitation I receive. It doesn't mean I don't accept the first, but I always accept the third. You should try this, because it means that you go to some bonkers things. I have opened old people's homes. I have judged dog shows. The most dangerous of all of the things I've ever done was I was asked to judge the West of England Orchid Society. My God, how dangerous. I prefer to go out in a rough part of Liverpool. I tell you what, they're awful. Anyway, rule number 6 is you've got to make a speech once a year about why you still feel inspired to work at Eden. Rule number 7, you've got to prepare a meal for the people that make it worth getting up in the morning who you work with, because anybody who thinks that the breaking of bread is just about eating does not understand humans. Almost every single seriously important thing that we've ever decided to do at Eden has been done at night. Rule number 8, I do not have the comfort of religion, but I'm deeply superstitious, and I believe if you have good fortune and you do not share it, you will lose it and it will never return to you. So the top 80 people at Eden, we have to do one act each a year of random goodwill, guerrilla goodwill, if you like, to somebody who will never know you did it. And you must watch from afar and enjoy it. It's very cool. And the last rule of all is that everybody at Eden has to learn to play Samba drums. No, you're thinking, aren't you, hippy-dippy? Yeah, no, but it's not hippy-dippy, because actually the interesting thing, many of you will know this about Samba, is the cross rhythms are really quite complicated, and until all the rhythms are playing, it's like falling over music, yeah? So when you get 500 people, right, and you get these big surdus, boom, 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 kabasa, timbales, taka, congas, boom, 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 you know this thing, cowbell, ding, yeah. And you get the drum captains coming in, they start playing, and everybody's doing it, and they're saying, I am English, I am so nervous, I can't bear it, people are looking at me, and the veins are standing up on my forearms. Oh, God, what have I done wrong, right? And then in come the cabasas, in come the timbales, and as the timbales go down, something really weird happens down the line, because the people playing the surdus, the big ones, their little bottoms start to wiggle. Funky. It's like a collective for Baloo the bear. And anyway, this goes on. And at the end, when the last drums come in, everybody goes crackers. And you know what? Afterwards, when we talk about it, they get it. There is nothing more thrilling in life than realizing how cool we are, Homo sap, you know, doing something together far bigger than you could do on your own. And it feels great. And it gives you hope, and it gives you optimism, and it drives you forward. Now, I know that sounds hippy-dippy, but I then made another revolution in my life, which was that not only was I going to trust my intuition, we were going to try and build Edens all over the world. And everybody said, you won't get it. Bit of good luck. This Chinese bloke turned up, and I didn't know he was world famous in his part of the world. I mean, he makes Richard Branson look like a shrinking violet. He'd climbed Everest twice. I don't know why, but he had. And anyway, he'd been to the North and South Pole and everything. He's a guy called Wang Shi. And he's kind of a rock god in the construction industry in China. And he was interviewed by China Daily, who said that the Eden project in Cornwall was the most exciting project in the world today, and that China should be working with us. Bloody hell's fire. The next month, we had delegations from just about every city in China. They were coming every day. And eventually, we decided to do one. My mantra is, give me your poison. I want your poison. Because, of course, Heligan was overgrown. The Eden mine was derelict, sterile, and it had poisonous things in it. And now we're going to build at Qingdao on the coast between Shanghai and Beijing. And it's on poisoned land. Isn't that good? It's the most perfect site. It's like the Sydney Opera House site, but central. Rivers the size of the Thames on left and right, and the ocean in front. And the land is poisonous. And we're going to build something 4 times bigger than Eden in Cornwall. And while we were doing that, we were approached by the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China. And they said, would we be interested in partnering the government in building this amazing botanic garden in Yan'an, which is north of Xi'an, where the Terracotta Army is. And it's a huge site. And it's on what's called the Loess Plateau, L-O-E-S-S, I think, and where millions of people drown because the Yellow River bursts its banks because the land is friable and blah, blah, blah. So we're doing that. And we're going to collect all the plants involved in the Chinese pharmacopoeia. And we've persuaded them now that we're going to actually try and collect every productive plant in China and bring it to this one place, as well as a bit of rock and roll, because it's a bit boring just laying them all out, a bit like, you know. And we're doing 2 more projects now in China. We're doing one great story, this. My third invitation was to go and meet a mad American who had been a cage fighter, drug addict, who was in rehab, who was coming to Britain. And a friend of mine said, you must meet this guy. And he's called David Millarch. And this guy has got the Archangel Tree Trust, and they propagate. He believes the Archangel Michael appeared to him on a slab. You don't have to believe that. You know, I don't necessarily believe that. But told him that he should propagate the ancient sequoias of the Sierra Nevada. And all the scientists said it could not be done to propagate vegetatively these giants, these 3,000-year-old giants. And he did it. This guy did it. And he said, would I join him? And I said, no. And he had a supporter who was with him, who'd flown him over. And the guy said, why won't you do it? I said, it's not big enough. It's not big enough. I mean, I think it's fantastic. So he said, look, come over with me and climb this tree. Come and climb the biggest tree in the world, because the biggest tree in the world isn't the General Sherman. It's actually this tree on this private land. So we climbed it, and he said, will you now work with us? And I said, no, but I will if you buy all of this land. And this guy has. He's just spent £13.7 million buying 500 acres with 300 trees over 3,000 years old. Do you know how cool that is? It's fantastic. We've done this project with a whole bunch of kids who are always getting into trouble called Tree School, and we take them to this place, and they have to learn how to climb 300 feet up a big tree. And it's really, really interesting, because the first branch is about 120 feet up. So they've got to learn how to use a bow and arrow with a line, and they've got to take rope, and then they climb, and then they have to learn how to lead. And these people are transformed by these actions. Anyway, I haven't got time to go on about that. We're also building in the earthquake zone of Christchurch with Maori partners. We're building in Squamish between Vancouver and Whistler on some lovely poisoned land. There they've got copper poisoning, arsenic, and mercury, which is absolutely terrific. And we're going to be cleaning up Howe Sound, which is out there, which is just fab. Where else are we? Oh, and we're in Dubai. We are working, building with Grimshaw, who built the Eden Project. We're working, building the sustainability pavilion for Dubai 2020, Expo 2020. And the reason we've got the gig is that I was asked to be, this is awful, there's no from press here, I hope. I was asked to be a critical friend of the thing. And I was on Skype with all of these people in Dubai and New York, where they're feeling a bit sort of jet-setty, And they caught me on a bad day. You know that sort of feeling? Someone asks you, what do you think, and you tell them? And they said, what did I think? And I said, it's absolute crap. And Her Royal Highness said, sorry? I said, to be honest, Your Highness, if you do this, everybody will say it's the Emiratis doing what everybody expected them to do, and you've hired far too expensive Western consultants just giving you horse feathers. It's rubbish. It's boring. Who wants to see cycles of carbon? All of that really earnest stuff that environmentalists get onto. Have you ever spent time with an earnest environmentalist? It's actually much more fun to drill your teeth without anesthetic, I promise you. And so she said, will you come over and tell my people this? And I said, yeah, I did, and I was equally rude when I got there. And then I had my bluff called. They said, would you do it then? Now that was a bit of a one, and I said, okay. So we're creating a theatre of science. And I can't give away many of the secrets, but I tell you what, we're getting to build an enormous gnasher, which mashes up beautiful things and turns them into products, eating up the natural world and creating stuff. We're building a giant fish. We're listening to whales. We're going to have the sun filmed live about 20 meters across and amplified. The whole room is of giant speakers so that the actual bass sound of the roaring flames of hell will go up your spine. And then suddenly, the sun will go out, and you'll see that all around you are ferns. You know what happens then? You know what happens? This is really cool. we're amplifying the sound of photosynthesis. Just imagine you're in this space. You cannot get away from the fact that sun devoured by plants, photosynthesizing gives us life on Earth. That's sexy stuff, isn't it? But the problem is plants, they get a bad rap, they do because they can't sing and dance, they can't do any of that sort of stuff, they just hang around, don't they, waiting, And to me, the big thrill is taking this stuff and making people get excited about it, really excited about it. Anybody here see The Martian, the film The Martian with Matt Damon? Do you remember that line? I'm going to have to science the shit out of this. But wasn't it spiritual when you saw that little potato shoot? It's amazing. And I feel that my duty, your duty is much bigger than mine, but my duty is to, do you realize the average age of farmers around the world is 61? We are looking at a car crash of food production, and John's going to be talking about population in a minute. Bloody good speech he's about to make, aren't you? Yeah. But it's really important. We might not need to worry about population. We'll all starve. Seriously. There are many parts of Britain where they reckon there's maybe only 60 harvests left in the soil. We've put so much rubbish in the soil that it's actually becoming increasingly infertile, and the amount of inputs you have to put in all the time is going up and up and up and up and up. So what I want to do with the Eden Project is to create something where people think that actually growing stuff is the new rock and roll. If you want to be really excited, there's a TED lecture by a guy called Caleb Harper, in which he's MIT, and he takes a warehouse. And I don't know whether you know this, but very, very recently, the technology for LED lights, you can now take the spectrum out to only broadcast the amount that is in the photosynthetic spectrum, which means that you don't then overheat. So just imagine, in this room, if you could grow plants every 18 inches up, yeah? How many acres do you reckon we got in this room? The age of super farms in cities is about to come. Isn't it exciting? It really is amazing. The only thing I'm worried about is bankers. They keep me awake at night. They do keep me awake at night because they're so effing stupid. If you look at technology rush, yeah? When you look at when computers started and how soon they became fast, and then mobile phones, smartphones, CDs, all that stuff, it's unbelievably quick. And yet bankers think that electric cars may well have a little share by 2030. I promise you, by 2020, 3 years from now, there will be no factories in the world making large-scale combustion engines. And you know what that means? That means that the battery technology will have been mastered, which means that we will do localized energy. And now what does that mean? It means that 23% of every pension fund in the world is going to go into crisis, isn't it? Because all our pension funds, the 23%, is based on fossil fuel reserves, which will then suddenly be not worth very much. So some of you are screwed. Yeah? I'll be dead by then. No, seriously, isn't that exciting? We are living at the moment of utter bliss of a new technological revolution. But also, I believe, you heard it here first, that within the next 10 years, there will be a spiritual revolution, not to do with a particular God. It's to do with the sort of stuff you guys have been doing. We did an exhibition at Eden called Invisible You about the microbiome. I didn't expect it to attract so many people. We did it with Welcome. We had something like 250,000 people came in 3 months out of season to see this. Then we just gave a taster of an exhibition we're going to start next year in which we show mycorrhiza, the fungi in the soil. And when you look at the mycorrhiza and the bacteria that are in the soil, you discover to your astonishment, utter astonishment, they're all related to the things that are inside us. And you suddenly realize we are living at a time when all of that hippie stuff that those of us who have a certain age, in the 60s, about, hey man, we're all one, we're on the verge of discovering we actually are all one. Isn't that marvelous? Yeah. Because I think we need that kind of renewal, but a sense of connection to the world, which I think has made us all unhappy. I think it makes people very unhappy. And I notice in my gardens, I notice with the stuff we're doing in all these other places, I'm about to be interrupted, that people feel better when they're connected. So it was a privilege to talk to you, and he's bigger than me, but God, hasn't he got good bling. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm very aware we stopped him about an hour and a half too early, so I'm quite confident that he could have gone on and kept us interested and amused and educated with your insights into life, which is quite different really from our world, and that's why we appreciate it so much. So on behalf of our college, I would like to present you Tim Smit's John Hunt Medal for 2017.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hey.